Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I am talking with Jodi Aman, who is the anxiety tamer, a YouTuber, a psychotherapist, and the author of You Won Anxiety Zero. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Jen.
I'm really excited to talk to you because I feel like anxiety it's a big issue for everybody these days. There's so much going on. There's so much to be anxious about. But I feel like entrepreneurs and self-employed people in particular, which is the audience of this show, mainly focuses on women working outside of the 9-to-5. And a lot of us are moms too. There's a lot of anxiety with this sort of new way of working, less structure, less safety nets of traditional employment and all of that. So a lot of women I talk to have a lot of anxiety. So I would love to hear your story, sort of how you came to doing what you're doing, especially from being a psychotherapist.
Yeah, absolutely. Like into this online world, like you go from one profession and how instead of like saying, okay, I'm going to quit my job and do this, I incorporated what I did into this work because I was sitting for 8 hours a day with one person. And in a lot of ways, Jen, I was repeating the same things to them. They were having the same problems. I was repeating the same ways to help them. And I thought, well, instead of 8 people a day, can I do better than this? Like with less of my time, can I impact a larger number of people? And a lot of times for entrepreneurs, that's what happens is like, we really feel a calling that's beyond us to help other people and to make the difference that we want to see in the world. And that's what I did stepping into this entrepreneurship, wanting to impact more people. So I started doing blogging, I started doing videos, and then I decided I got to write this book. And I want to speak to big groups of people because I know I have the answers and the ideas that is going to help them. And I know that I teach really practically. And I also had the experience with anxiety in my own life. And so people love to hear from someone who totally gets it. And I totally get it.
Mm-hmm. So you're still a psychotherapist by day, or as well as doing your online stuff and being an author?
Yeah, absolutely. I still see
people
privately. Yep. I still see people privately. I still see people in groups. I do have an online group. And I want to always keep it. I love what I do. I love what I do. And so, of course, I'm going to still work personally with people until maybe I'll get so big that I won't be able to work personally one-on-one with anybody anymore. That would be lovely. Not because I'd give that up, but because that will mean that I'm impacting more people, that I'm speaking somewhere every week into big groups of people and helping more than those 8 that I could see. I did scale back. Like I used to see 35 people a week. Now I see about 15 because I'm doing my online business.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. So I do think that having a passion is one reason to get into entrepreneurship, but I'd like to bring up the other reason that I see a lot, because I think this causes even more anxiety. And it happened to me, which is I had a very difficult high-risk pregnancy. I used up more than all my time off when I was pregnant, which meant coming back, I had 0 paid time off, and I only had my job protected for 6 weeks, thanks to, the Family Leave Protection Act, or I may be saying that wrong, but you know what I mean. You can only have so much time that your job's guaranteed. And it was not enough. My daughter is complex medical needs. She has white blood cell disorder. She's tube fed. She has autism. As a special needs mom, I could not give my daughter the level of care she needed and stay in traditional employment. And that's kind of where my audience started with other special needs moms. I've expanded it because my husband and I have always had, at least on the side, our own business. We run record labels and do a few different things. But I see so many other women who, thank God that there's the internet and entrepreneurship now, because without that, we'd have very few for traditional employment. So I think that causes a lot of anxiety too. If you leave the workforce to care for a loved one, which is a fairly significant portion of women leaving the workforce, either for children, for a spouse who's become disabled, or for parents. So how can your work benefit those people? Because that's probably the main makeup of my audience.
Well, yeah, I think because it's so scary because you have to replace that money.
Yeah, there's a lot of
you have to replace that money, so that's more stressful than other entrepreneurs that are starting things on the side and only quit their job when they get going. This is like needed. And in some ways, that desperation or that need makes you focus. You know, the people who are willing to take those kind of risks to be an entrepreneur in the first place, you know, you have something that's important enough for you to do it. And staying home with your daughter was the utmost importance. But yes, you had to bring that money in. So you were going to hustle and do that. Now, this is really interesting. Of course, it's stressful. And we all are under stress here, right? But stress and anxiety is the same hormones. You know, the same hormones are released. The adrenaline and norepinephrine comes when you're stressed or when you're anxious. It's just a different amount of it. And when the amount of those hormones are higher, then if we start to change meaning. You know, when we're stressed, we know we're stressed, and it kind of, sometimes it could give us energy. There's a thrill of it, the excitement of, oh my gosh, I'm making something, and look at the response I'm getting, you know. And so you could get in the thrill of it and ride that. And a lot of entrepreneurs do that, and it gets them focused. You use that adrenaline to take more action, to have more energy to do things, reach out to people. But it could get to the point that it's so much. And when that adrenaline and norepinephrine gets a little bit higher, then the anxiety could keep you immobilized, actually. But that's, once the anxiety is so bad and it makes you want to stop, it makes you want to pull back, it makes you want to hide under the covers, then the anxiety is so bad that you stop. And actually, the problem is when you stop, the anxiety just perpetuates. Like, you have the adrenaline and norepinephrine. The whole point of those things is to take some kind of action. If you're taking the action at the same time, you could get into a flow and it will work. Actually, entrepreneurs need that. We need adrenaline to keep going. It takes so much energy to do what we do. But once it tips into like, oh my God, this doesn't feel good. This feels really scary. I'm out of control. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Then we need to pull that back a little bit. The problem is stopping is the worst thing you could do. If you got preoccupied and you push yourself into, you know, your project, that adrenaline will get used up and you'll feel a lot better. So it's just thinking you're out of control or putting that into something you can control makes all of the difference in the world.
This sounds kind of like the eustress and the distress kind of, I think that was from, gosh, I read so many books now that I'm forgetting. Maybe it was a Tim Ferriss or, you know, one of those, but entrepreneurships, or I read lots of like habits books, like what help people with their habits and stuff. And one of them talked about eustress, which is really necessary to move things forward, but then distress, how you can, once you get distressed, your body reacts differently than.
Yeah, it's in the meaning we make around it, right? It's just a little heightened, but if we feel out of control, that makes the difference.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's when it turns into an anxiety thing. You know? So we feel out of control and it scares us when we pull back. That's when it turns into something that's, you know, kind of against us instead of for us.
You know, and another thing that I've seen create a lot of anxiety for the women that I talk to is this whole thing of visibility and selling you in some way, you know, because now so many people are personal brands on the internet. A lot of people, the skill set or the products that they sell, people could get many, many places. So they actually are kind of choosing you in personally over other people who could offer that service. And it feels so personally vulnerable to put yourself out there like that. And I see a lot of people get a lot of anxiety about that.
Exactly. Well, because it goes right to our self-esteem, right? Am I worthy?
Yeah.
I'm worthy. And you know, when you're talking about what to charge, or when you're talking about being on video, being competent in anything, like, so the numbers really tell, right? That they're like telling your worth. And if you're down on your worth and are not really solid in your self-esteem, which none of us are, because we've grown up in this culture that really has very high expectations and we never feel like we're enough. So we are all of us women are starting out feeling like, am I enough? Am I worth it? And blah, blah, blah. And then so then it feels a little out of control and we feel down on ourselves. And when we're down on ourselves, we feel like we can't handle anything. And that's why we're vulnerable to the anxieties, because we feel like we can't handle stuff because we don't trust ourselves, because we don't think we're enough. And so we got to really lower our expectations, really embrace ourselves, have a lot more self-compassion. And when we have that self-compassion, it builds our confidence up. And I tell people every day, write down the three things that you've accomplished that day. You know, we're constantly looking at what we didn't do, what we didn't accomplish, what didn't get done on our list. And, you know, as moms, as working moms, I mean, we are doing so much more than we're recognizing. We don't celebrate any of that. We're just constantly looking at our deficits. And so if every night you write down 3 things that you've done that day, then you start to connect with the skills that you have. You're mad skilled. Total people are so skilled, but they don't see it. And so I want them to connect with their skills. Once they start to see every day that they have the abilities, that they're responding to their life, that they are an agent and they're doing something, then they start to trust themselves. And when they start to trust themselves, there's just no room for anxiety in their life.
You know, since we're talking on this show mainly to women, one other thing that, as you were talking about the, you know, how our society sort of has such a high expectations. And I feel like of women in particular, and, you know, since the 80s, we have this idea of the superwoman, the super mom who brings home the bacon and cooks it too and does all these things. And then we also have all the supermodels and the physical expectations of our bodies. One thing that I've talked to a lot of women on the show about, and I've experienced myself, is that on top of all of that, about 1 in 3 of us have experienced some form of sexual violence in our lives, or abuse, or something that really, on top of all of the rest, which may be a bit of pressure on us, that really puts a big hit in what we think of ourselves, our safety, our vulnerability. You know, women who I know have been through some of those things, then trying to be visible online and open to negative comments, that is so hard. I'm sure as a psychotherapist, you run into that as well.
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of work with people who have been abused. I've had retreats before just for people who've been abused. So I do a lot. And actually, a lot of the stories that I have in my book are people who've experienced trauma. So I do call it like a PTSD book also. And I think that, you know, yes, it goes hand in hand, because already in our culture, we always feel less than. We always feel not good enough. But you compound that with having something horrible happen to you, having someone treat you like you're worthless. And that compounds it, that, you know, validates that you're worthless. And so it's hard to get over that. A lot of self-doubt, a lot of negative self-judgment that people have to work through. And so, yeah, it absolutely compounds this. The problem that was happening in our culture, it compounds it even more when you've been a victim of abuse, sexual abuse, or any kind of abuse, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've talked to a few women too, just about how, because the show focuses on women and money, you know, we're trying to talk about how to sort of thrive when you're outside of that traditional umbrella of employment. Just how difficult it can be to decide what to charge. You know, just our culture thinks of money as, that's how we say what something's worth. That's how we value it. So when you struggle to make sales and you struggle to do any of these things, it can really affect the value you put on yourself. And it, you know, it impacts the money that you make then too. So, so I would love to hear how you help women. You know, now we've kind of like outlined a bunch of things that we can feel stress and anxiety about. How do you help them through all of these things?
Well, you know, it's interesting because you know how Gandhi, like this one mother said, my son's eating candy. Could you tell him not to eat candy? And Gandhi said, come back in a year.
Yeah.
And the mom came back in a year and said, you know, okay, my son's eating candy. So Gandhi's like, stop eating candy. And she's like, why do I have to come back? And he said, because I had to do it first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to not eat candy first. And so I feel like I've been through that. Like, I've had terrible sales. I have 6 online programs for people with anxiety, and I don't know how to sell it. This was a whole new skill set, right? In this kind of work, I had so many different skill sets. I have to understand people. I have to know how to be a good counselor. Then I have to be a marketer. Then I have to be like this digital whiz of like all this technology, right? And then I have to learn lighting and sound. And I mean, there's so many different aspects of this that you have to be a pro at to do this kind of work. And so it takes a long time to learn. You know, I had to learn adult learning theory to figure out how to put a video together that somebody could get something out of. But the last thing that I did was try to figure out how to put a sales page together. It's the last thing I did. And you have to be really easy on yourself, because I was like, oh, nobody likes what I got. But I didn't know how to make people see the value of it. And that is a whole other skill. It's not something intuitively we get. Like, we have to figure out how to make a sales video or write a sales page so that people can see our worth. And if we don't have that, if our mindset's not there and we don't think our stuff is worthy, or we have some doubt about it, of course it's going to be 10 times harder. Of course it's going to stop. And that's probably what stopped me, right? Stopped me from focusing. I focused on all the things. I learned all the other stuff. And last, I have tons more to learn and I'm going to keep going, but it was only really recently that I was like, I got to figure out how to make a sales page. This is my problem. I got to let people know, or get traffic to it, right? I have to let people know what I have for them. I have things that can help them. They're suffering. They're suffering out there, and I have the answer. And so if I don't learn how to put a sales page together, I am not giving them what they need to feel better. And you have to, it's hard. You got to do that mind work, right?
But it's also part of this sort of new economy that we have. Like, I saw a really interesting article recently that was criticizing the mompreneur movement. And this woman was basically saying, like, everyone's all excited. All these moms are starting businesses, but she's like, the problem is that they can't stay in regular employment where they could just do their job. So like, if you come from a regular job and you were a VA, a secretary, an executive assistant, or an executive even, you did your job and you knew how to do it. You try to take those skills and go freelance and become a consultant or a VA or any of those things. Not only do you have to do the job, but you have to be a salesperson. And a lot of us who are in other jobs, I never was trained in sales. I did not know how to do sales. I never tried to convince people of the worth of the thing that I was working on.
Yeah.
My little section of that job. And this is completely different. And it's hard. Sales
is hard. You have to build your confidence up and know that, and you have to get your ego out of the way. It's not even about me. It's about like this information or something, whatever. I mean, whatever mindset you have to do is be like, okay, listen, I just have to step aside and not worry about my sales so much and just love people, just love people from that sales page and tell them what the results might be if they take it. It's what's possible for them. And I know people so well that I've always known those things, but it's my own self-esteem that's keeping me from expressing it. And then of course I had to learn the skill, right?
Yeah. So there's the anxiety on the ego personal side, but then there's also the anxiety of learning a new skill, which I think it's good to learn lots of new skills throughout your life because it keeps
keeps you young and healthy. It keeps you so young and healthy. And actually, when people have a lot of anxiety and they kind of pull back from life, or they stay home and they stop doing stuff, I want them to get projects. I said, learn something new. Like, you need to learn guitar, learn a lesson, learn a new craft, something, because that uses the brain that's going to calm the anxiety down. It also empowers you. It makes you realize that you have these abilities. And when you have abilities, you could spread them to other things. So you don't have to worry about bad things happening. So entrepreneurs, actually, I know a lot of them do have anxiety, but actually learning those new things, I think that's what's kept me healthy all this time. I cured my anxiety years and years ago, but it's my maintaining my happiness and my maintaining using my brain for a lot of creative projects. If I was bored, anxiety would come right in. Boredom is one of the worst things for anxiety.
Yeah. I can't say I don't remember the last time I felt bored.
No, as a mompreneur, you're not. Like, I have my kids. I'm doing their schedules constantly. My kids are so busy. I'm worried about them. If they're stressed out, like, I'm preoccupied. Obviously, I'm taking care of my husband. I want him to not feel like a widow to my work, And so there's so much happening. And when I started blogging, it was either like single moms or non-moms being
Hmm.
successful. There was very few married, blogging, working moms. So I was working, blogging, and married.
Mm-hmm.
And and nobody else was out there doing all of this at once. I was a little crazy probably, but my heart and my soul, like I just felt like I had to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really slow.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You know,
I've been online for 10 years. I'm slow. I should be like way out there by now, but I had a lot of other things. You know, I had my work and my family, and so I was slow.
well, and maintaining a practice at the same time,
Yeah.
that's
That's
unusual.
like working 9 to 5, right? So it's working 9 to 5 and doing this on the side. And I'm always like first one there for my kids. And, you know, you have to be okay with it. But then you see other people really doing great. They don't have kids, or they do have kids, but they're older or something.
Or they
Now,
don't
I
have
think there's
9
more
to
of us that are doing everything. But just because the sheer numbers have gone up in the people,
Mhm.
you know, doing this work online, like starting their own business. But I was really in the cusp before it got popular. And yeah, I mean, if I had more time back then, my numbers would be higher. You can't worry about the numbers anyway. Just, you know, I have individuals writing me constantly and telling me how I changed their life. Just watching my videos, just reading my book, taking my programs. I have the information and I teach so practically. I think it's really, I know the value of it now when I didn't before, because no one was buying and I thought it was crap. It wasn't crap. I just didn't know how to sell it.
Well, and that's such a hard thing too, because I do feel like, okay, so you put all this work in, you get something together, and then you want to get it out to your audience, and you're like, oh, I have to build a list, so I have to have an opt-in. So if that doesn't work very well, like, is it the opt-in? Is it the
You know, traffic to it, you know.
right? And then you finally get them to the sales page, and it's like, is it the product or is it the sale? You know, there's so many things that you can keep adjusting as you go along, and I feel like people can obsess about each step along the way. Like, is it just that I didn't write the right sales page? Do I need to go spend a fortune on some famous sales page writer to do it?
Right.
Or,
I
you know,
tried to
or do I
hire
need
someone
to-
else to do my copywriting. It just didn't work. You know, and
Yeah.
it's really recently, I mean, I had an affiliate program. I had 900 people come through my funnel and nobody bought it. It was like zero conversion. And I probably didn't email as much as I should have and all that kind of stuff. Recently I changed it so that people could have access to it faster. Like, I think it was too long. If you have anxiety and you're upset, you want to get what you want to get it. You don't want to wait like 2 weeks for me to pitch you and tell you what I have for you. You want to know what I have for you. So I changed it. And it's like selling so much now. It's like incredible. And I mean, I'm a shamanic practitioner, and I do a lot of like hands-on healing and that kind of stuff. And someone had suggested, Jodi, vibrate your products. And then all the ads or anytime you speak about it or any slides you put out, anything, vibrate it with the energy that you want that product to have. Does that make sense? Like, so I started to do that.
What does that mean exactly? What does that look like?
It's mostly intentional, right? So so in a meditation, I think about this product and all of the things that are attached to it, every email, all that kind of stuff. And I vibrate it with this high energy of healing, of this relief from anxiety and this just thinking. So it happens all in my imagination, right? So I imagine the people who are watching this coming down, getting grounded, feeling good, like really opening up and it changing their life. And with this intention, I've set that vibration, whatever those feelings or whatever that imagination is of someone feeling better, and I attach it to that. And this is just intentionally. I just intentionally say, okay, that's part of that. And our imagination, that's real. That's, we think imagination is not real and reality is real, but like our mind doesn't know the difference between an apple and a picture of an apple. It's like apple. And so that, when you create that, Marianne Williamson said the womb is the imagination is the womb where our new world is created. And so I created that in my head. And then I said, okay, tell me what to write, sort of. And I redid my sales page. And it's only really been in the last month, but it's just incredible. And I've been online for 10 years. I'm making all these programs. I haven't marketed them. I have tons of programs I don't market, but now I'm like, okay, time to market everything. And it's just doing awesome. And I know from the comments that I have in my book that it's really hot. I still think like, I don't even think it's a good book. I don't know why I keep saying that, because everybody tells me this book is amazing. This book is amazing. I still have doubts because I'm human, but I'm starting to really believe, wait a minute, I think this book is amazing, actually. And so I'm right there with all of you out there. I've been through it, so I know exactly what you're going through, and we just got to keep going and push through it and get in the flow.
Thank you for being so open about all this, because I think when people just see things from the outside, we just see the glossy photos, we see the fancy sales page, we see the retreat photos or whatever, and everything looks like everyone else has it together except for you, because you're seeing their front end and you're seeing your own back end.
Yes, all the background work, because my audience is not other entrepreneurs. I don't talk about this stuff. Yeah. Nobody knows about this stuff. And so they just see me out there, sharing my message to help them. And I see other entrepreneurs, because of course I'm following everybody, trying to learn everything I can, and they get to talk about that stuff openly. And I'm glad that I love my audience. I'm glad it's my audience. I mean, in some ways it helps me do more traditional media, because my audience is everybody. And so that's kind of the path I'm going. Like, I want to get on morning shows. I want to get my audience bigger, because I have something for the general population. And
anxiety spans. Everyone experiences anxiety.
It's such an epidemic right now. And so I'm just trying to help people. Lots of people at a time, not one person at a time anymore. So I'm just going out there. Like this morning, I was like, I took a picture of myself in front of the studio, because I was like, okay, you got to announce it. Like you have to market yourself, right? So I took a picture outside the studio, and I'm thinking, why do I get myself into this? Like, I'm nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if it goes bad? I don't know if I'm going to. And I'm like, why do I keep pitching myself? Like, why don't I just hide in my house and like be safe and not worry about anything? But you put yourself out there, and obviously nothing bad happened to me. But you have that thought.
And that was a television.
That thought goes through your, like, why do I get myself into this,
And you did a television interview this morning, right?
I did a television interview this morning, and it went great. And I know that I've been on that show several times, about 6 times in the last 2 years. So I know the studio, I know but it's still nerve-wracking each time. Like, what if you mess up?
Yeah, that's true. But you didn't. It went fine. And you know what? Most things, like especially doing shows like this, it doesn't matter that much. I mean, like in your life, it's you're on television, you're doing this thing, and it's awesome. Yeah. But for most people, they might cut out the bit if it's a super big mistake. And if they don't, someone might laugh, or there's those viral videos of like someone on television and their kid runs in the back or something, and then everyone thinks it's hilarious and they want to watch that anyway. So having a mistake might be the best thing that ever happened.
Best thing that ever happened. And well, that eases you up so much, right? If you think, oh, a mistake could be the best thing that happens to you, wow, that just takes all the pressure off. Absolutely. It doesn't really matter. I mean, people love to see that I'm human. People love when I talk about my mistakes, because it makes them feel a little bit better. If they think that I have this happy life and I'm great, and they see my pictures and they're like, she's like so happy. Yeah, I'm happy because I create that happiness. But I have to fight that negative voice in my head all the time. And if they know that I'm doing that, at least they know I can relate to them a little bit more. And it's not like she's just lucky because she's happy. No, I work on it. You have to. People who are happy, they're not just lucky. They generate that happiness. And that's what I teach people how to do. And that makes all the difference when they know that it's not natural. It's not natural. You have to generate happiness. Like you have to practice doing stuff every day to maintain it and keep it going. And this is the only way that I don't have anxiety right now.
So I feel like we have gotten some pretty actionable tips from you so far. I just want to pull those together and see if you have any follow-up for it, because you definitely told us that, so when you have anxiety or stress, taking action can use those hormones, right?
Yes.
So using it for productive means.
Yes. And taking action, it releases the GABA hormone. GABA puts the brakes on the adrenaline and the norepinephrine. So taking action actually changes the chemicals in your brain and will calm you down.
So if you're really, really stuck on the big, like scary thing you want to do you recommend doing something smaller, take a walk, like do action in some way, even if you're like completely paralyzed for the big jump?
Exactly. Okay. It does it. You don't have to take action facing that actual fear. It could be cleaning out a drawer or doing something else. Anything that can make you feel empowered will put that GABA out. I mean, physiologically, it's going to put the GABA out, and psychologically, it's going to build your confidence and your ability to see that you have some power in a situation. So yes, take a walk. I mean, if you were going to say one thing that you could do a day if you have anxiety, walk outside, I would say. Walk outside.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I love walk. That's why I have dogs, actually, is to make me go walk outside.
Oh, animals are the best. Love it. Yes.
Okay. And then you also talked about learning new skills, which I kind of wonder, I've seen some interesting articles lately about having a hobby and reading fiction being really good for obsessive entrepreneurs who will only stay in nonfiction, only self-development, and only do their work and not have a hobby. I saw something saying how much that can help you.
Can I confess something?
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard for me to read nonfiction right now. It's so hard. Yeah. I love fiction. I love novels. I love that escape. And when I read nonfiction, it's just because I'm in it all day long. I'm writing it. I do read a lot of nonfiction articles or self-help articles. I'm putting things together, but it's hard I have a stack of books by my dresser. It's hard for me to read them because it's so much. I live self-help all the time. I love it, but I don't need more. I need an escape. And the creativity, it does help the prefrontal cortex. I mean, it's going to develop and it's going to stimulate that prefrontal cortex, and that is going to help the anxiety go down. That's exactly what we want to do.
Okay. So we have action, walk outside, read fiction as well as nonfiction if you're reading nonfiction, have some kind of hobby, learn some new skills. All these things help with anxiety, right?
Write down those 3 things a night, 3 things every night that you have accomplished that day. Very important.
Okay.
And you don't have to stay away from nonfiction if you're struggling. And that's not that's for me, it's what I do every day, all day. And so that's why but for some people, listen to a positive video every day. Get that positive in every day. I think in high schools, I got to do that. Every day. Yeah. Every day they should have this happiness tip or life happiness hack. I mean, we really need to, we're so surrounded by negativity that we really need to every day start our day with some positive message.
Yeah, I think that's great too. What do you think about doing gratitude journals?
I love gratitude journals. Now, this is a spin on the gratitude journal, writing down what you accomplish each day, because the gratitude journals are great. And we know research says they change lives. They're amazing. But there's a passiveness to it. You could like a sunset, which is really great. At least it's telling you that there's good things in the world, and that's great. But if you're writing down something that you accomplished, you're connecting with your own personal agency. And that's missing in a gratitude journal. That connection with your empowerment, the connection with your skills and the values that you have. And that's why I'd like to add this. If people are doing gratitude journal, add this.
I think that's fantastic, because I know the times I've had to do a food journal or something like that, I often end up thinking about what I want to say in the journal and then engineering that, oh, I'm going to have to write down what I eat. So obviously I'll go get a salad today. So it makes me get the salad knowing I'm going to write it down. So I like this idea, because then knowing at some point during the day, I'm going to write down what I accomplished. I'll have to think
notice that.
what do I
You
want to
start to
accomplish today?
celebrate it. Yeah. And I don't write it down anymore. Like I celebrate it in the moment. After I do something, I'm like, I did that. I'm serious. Like I celebrate everything. And I think that like when we accomplish something, we're looking on the next thing and it's not done and it's heavy and it's hard to, you lose the energy, you're zapping it. But if you look at one thing you did and you're like, I did that, I learned that and I did that, it's awesome. All of a sudden you're lifted up. You're totally lifted up and absolutely have energy for the next thing. It's totally changes everything. And that's how I'm so productive. People ask me all the time, how are you so productive? How are you such a high performer? I look at your website, look at all the things you're doing. That's because I celebrate what I do instead of looking at my deficits. It changes everything.
Well, I do have to say, I recently have interviewed a couple of women. One was a nephrologist, a doctor, and then I have a friend who's an OBGYN, and then even my sister who's a naturopathic doctor, who are all starting online businesses. And it's kind of like what you're talking about. I see this as a new thing because people used to think as a doctor you couldn't do that. But especially for the OBGYN, who was my own, she delivered both my children, she's been on call most of her life, her professional life. And it's hard. And she's divorced now and she has her kids and she wants her time back. So, and she does a lot of mindfulness and yoga stuff. So it's been interesting for her. I think it's having an online business is wanting to kind of shift and take more control over her time so that she's on call less. And, I do see like, not only is entrepreneurship for women like me who had to leave traditional employment, but I see, people like you who you have a thriving practice. You could just sit on your laurels and be happy with that, but you want more from life. You want more time control. You want to be able to reach more people. You want to do more. And I think that's so exciting too, to watch people like you do that. I think it inspires a lot of people being like, oh, wow, you have kids, you have this job. Maybe I could start something like you're doing as well.
Awesome. I'm glad. I hope I inspire people because, I think you really have to have the heart for it and the gumption, and it really can be amazing knowing that you inspire or give hope to people out there. People need it so badly. They just need that hope and the skills, and they need the information. And so I just love that people are going out there and trying to deliver. It's amazing. I know how hard it is. I know how much work it is. If I had to do it all over again, I'd do it totally differently. I'd do it a lot easier. And I don't teach marketing yet because I'm like, I got to get it right first, and then I might be able to teach people how to market. But I sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I was just starting out and I could do it all much simpler.
But you can start right now with everything you have. Today's a new day, right?
Today's a new day. Now I'm like, okay, I'm not creating anything else. I'm just going to get my message out there more, like have people on my show, be on more shows, do more speaking, because that's the whole point of it is to reach more people, reach inside and tell people how wonderful they are and how amazing they are so that they could see it too and start to heal in their life. That's what I want to do.
That's great. So if people listening to this want more of you, can we send them to your website?
Yeah, I got tons of stuff for them. I got tons. I have over 100 videos on YouTube, but you could find me at jodiaman.com. And I wanted to tell you, Jen, that I'm doing this retreat in 1440 Multiversity in June, and it's going to be amazing. It's 5 days with me. We are going to go really deep, release all your fears, figure out how to grow confidence, how to be happy, let go of the past. I mean, I'm really going to take people on a journey in this retreat, and it's going to be awesome. So I want to invite all of you to come and spend that time with me in the Redwoods. It's going to be amazing.
That sounds fantastic. Okay, we'll definitely put a link to the retreat as well as your website and your book so people can find all of that. I need to go read your book. I usually try to read books before guests come on, and I missed this one. I'm sorry, but I will read it and I will write a review. I talked on my show that I'm doing a 100 book challenge this year because in college, I was a writing major. I always read voraciously. And then after having kids, I just couldn't seem to keep the book with me until I did this, which, I still, as you can see, I have a bookshelf here. I love real books, But this and audible.com, having to be able to switch between my Kindle and my Audible, like I'll be driving in the car, listen to the Audible, and then I'll switch to my Kindle when I'm at home, means I finish books finally. So I try to do 2 books a week, 1 fiction, 1 nonfiction. That's kind of my little habit.
That's great. That's so great. That's
yeah.
Great.
And
I do have my book on Audible.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I do. And it's,
do you read it yourself?
I read it myself. Yeah. So
I love that. That's my favorite one.
My voice and the energy that I give to everybody. So yeah.
Well, we'll put the Audible link too, because that's what I recommend, especially for busy moms. I read tons of books in my car, commuting my kids to and from school, to and from therapy, to and from recreational activities. And then when I stop and I go into like while they're having practice or therapy, that's when I just grab this and I can finish reading. If I want to read, hear what's going on with them, but read, I can do the Kindle. That's been my favorite invention. I mean, for me, it's revolutionized reading books.
I like it. I actually read books on my phone because I always have it with me. And listen. You could listen and read. I don't even take that bigger pad, but
I tried that.
My life.
The problem I had with that was my eyes, especially at night, reading on my phone, because I do so much on my phone all day. I found by night my eyes really hurt. I would have.
I felt like on the black background.
I guess not on my phone, but that's why I got the Kindle White. Like that's my favorite one because it looks like paper. It feels. My eyes feel like I'm reading paper.
I always read in the black background.
Okay, maybe I should try that on my phone.
Obviously, when it's so bright and the rest of the room is dark, it like your pupils don't know what to do. Yeah. But this and you could turn down the brightness of it, so you could be not very bright, but you still see the words. You can make them bigger. Anyway, but I always, I've taught other people. They're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you could do this." And it's like, you don't disturb, your husband or anything because there's no light. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah,
that's pretty much why I switched to this. That and the Whisper Sync, because it'll sync where you are on the Audible book to where you are on the Kindle book, which I'm sure it does on your phone too.
I know, isn't it? It does, yeah.
Technology is incredible.
It'll match where you are. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, because there's a lot of times where I don't want the Audible, like depending on where I am and if I have headphones or not. But being able to switch back and forth. Genius. Whoever came up with that was a genius. Okay, so everyone should go. We're putting this in our book club. This will be one of our books that we'll read because I think we all need help with anxiety, definitely. And I have a book club here in town too. I'll see if I can get them to read this.
I'll put this up too.
They're not always into nonfiction there either because we often think of fiction as escape, but I think anxiety is something so many of us deal with. I mean, I'm hoping at some point.
I tell a lot of stories, so it's like, we need stories too, right? So I do tell a lot of stories, and I think that's why people like it so much. Mm-hmm. So you get the story at least. It's not like a nonfiction and just like.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you that just occurred to me. So I myself am on antidepressants, and I know a lot of us in the world, in the United States especially, are. And I did last year accidentally lost my luggage and cold turkeyed it and experienced so much more anxiety than I did before I even took them. I mean, I started taking them mainly because my daughter doesn't sleep very well. She sleeps for maybe 3 hours at a time. So for 10 years now, I've had interrupted sleep. And that I felt like that. And then the doctors felt like I had more situational depression and anxiety than like clinical, but still it's a light dose. It helps so much. But when I went off, I had extreme anxiety. It was really surprising how hard it was. And I lost a bunch of weight really fast. I worried about, my mind spun at night, all those things. So I went back on, but eventually I'd like to get off. I don't want to be on for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people that I know feel that way too. Like we do at certain times of our life, need some extra help. Do you help people with that, with getting off of?
Yes. I do have a blog on my website called How to Get Off Your Antidepressives. Okay. You can search it in the search button on jodiaman.com, How to Get Off Your Antidepressives. I think on the bottom, on my footer, it says my secret state, being happy. But it's slow. You have to do it slow. Obviously, there was a withdrawal. If you've been on them for a really long time, I mean, it's been making your serotonin, and so you need it. Your body needs to learn how to do that again. So even when you're past the withdrawal piece, I mean, I think a lot of times doctors take people off way too fast. Even 2 weeks or a month, too slow. You need to take like 6 months and wean down very, very slowly, because your body has to readjust to making those hormones that medicine has been doing that all that time. And at the same time, you need to nourish yourself a lot of nourishment. And, you know, I like these nourishing herbal infusions, and they could really replace the antidepressives in their tea. Like infusion is just a strong tea. So it's natural because it's just the plant dried, you know, like a tea. And so it's not a pharmaceutical at all, but it's so nourishing and gives you all the things that you need, that it is helping people just like the antidepressive would if you drink them. And so, yeah, and if you drink them as you're weaning off, I think that's really helpful, but very, very slow. That obviously cold turkey, obviously you had a withdrawal. So the anxiety wasn't that this was helping the anxiety, and without it you get anxiety. That's not what that anxiety was from. The anxiety was from a withdrawal. So that's not you. Rest assured. That's not you. That was withdrawal. So you don't have to, you know, something's not wrong with you. And you just have to get off really slow. But yeah, I do help people do that in terms of counseling and just giving advice. But I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't give medical advice, but I help people weigh the risks and benefits and plan it. But everyone does it much too fast. And then they think, oh, I can't go off it. I'm bad. Like something's wrong with me because I can't go off it. I have to stay on it. Like I'm messed up or I'm mentally ill. No, it's because your body hasn't done this for a really long time, and it takes a very long time. So wean slower.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, well, great. I'm going to look into that myself, because that is one of my goals eventually here, is to stop paying big pharma money for my moods.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed this conversation today.
Thanks, Jen, so much. I did too.
Okay, we'll see you online then. Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.